Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the webinar organized by our district. 3 years, there had been a sense of complacency that has crept into our system, and most of the lodges were rather complacent. They did not function. Now, this year, we have already picked up and we are having our regular meetings. Our district grandmaster is always brimming with ideas, He wants Scottish masonry to be revived to its original level. And one of the ideas that he mooted was that we should have periodic Zoom meetings when we can have a fair exchange of ideas, not only on Freemasonry, but also in other aspects, and especially the interactive part of our district and individual lodges interaction. Brethren, today's topics that he has selected is a very, very valid one, but rather neglected. Of course, some of the lodges during the initiation ceremony do explain the first degree tracing board, but most of the lodges that we have witnessed, we are so engrossed in the ceremony of initiation that ultimately we say the tracing board will be explained next time, and that next time sometimes never comes. So in the fitness of things, our district grandmaster mentioned that we should now this time talk on the first degree tracing board, but not only on the tracing board, but also a deep insight into the other connected matters also. I am a witness in the district office to the efforts that he has put in. He has spent a number of days preparing for this webinar, and I'm sure you all will enjoy it. I hope this is being recorded for posterity so that we can use it at a future date also. With all this, welcome Brother Kersi, Right Wor District Grandmaster, for this wonderful presentation that you have prepared.
Thank you, Brother Nosif, for those kind words. Before I start my presentation, I'd like to wish everyone Freemasons Universal Brotherhood Day. It was there yesterday. So I think it would be, though a little belated, but I think it would be appropriate to wish all of you. Now, I think what I should also do is, I should share how this Freemasons Universal Brotherhood is being celebrated on that particular day. Because I asked quite a few brethren as to why you do it on the 24th of June. And believe me, most of the brethren I spoke to were not aware why we are celebrating on the 24th of June. So I thought I may throw a little light on that. See, incidentally, what happened was, on the 24th of June, 1717, 4 lodges met in Goose and Gridiron Tavern. And that is when the first Grand Lodge was started. So it goes back to those days in 1717 on the 24th of June. And that is why the Freemasons Universal Brotherhood is celebrated on this particular day. Now, besides the Freemasons Universal Brotherhood Day, there is also a Universal Brotherhood Day. And this Universal Brotherhood Day is on the 11th of September. Incidentally, 11th of September was the day on which Swami Vivekananda gave his historic speech at the first Parliament of World Religion. The first Parliament of World Religion in 1893, which was held from 11 September to 27 September in Chicago was considered a universal brotherhood of day, because it was on that day that he pronounced that we should discard the idea of any religious supremacy. No religion is supreme to any other religion. So he introduced the concept, and the message was mutual tolerance and religious acceptance. And he was applauded there because he started his speech in a very unconventional way. He did not do it with the conventional salutation. He started with sisters and brothers of America. So that is how he was lauded, and that is how the Universal Brotherhood Day is supposed to be on the 11th of September, and the Freemasons Universal Brotherhood Day is on the 24th of June. I think I have taken enough of your time to give you this little peep into history. And now we start with our tracing board presentation. Now, as Brother Naushir rightly mentioned, I, from my observation, have felt that this has been a neglected subject, and that was the reason why I selected it. He has also given you the reasons that we rush through it. We sometimes give it, we sometimes explain the tracing board, sometimes we don't explain the tracing board because we are too eager to give the initiation, passing, and raising ceremonies to our candidates. And even when the tracing board is given, what I have seen is it is read through, and the real substance and meaning behind the tracing board is not culled out. So I have made in this presentation, I have made this effort to go into a bit of history, conventions, practices, and the esoteric aspect of the tracing board. And what I have also made an attempt is not to repeat what is given as far as the tracing board is concerned in the ritual, because what is there in the ritual, all of you all can read. So I have tried and made an attempt to go beyond the ritual and to share with you. So this is what I have attempted to do. I would like this meeting to be an interactive meeting. We have stalwarts who are knowledgeable in Masonic literature, like my own District Grand Secretary Naushir Pagriwala, and our Deputy Grand Superintendent, Brother Rt Wor, who has also been the Regional Grand Master and the Deputy Grand Master in the Indian Constitution. So we have stalwarts here. I'm sure there must be other stalwarts, but please pardon me if I have not quoted your names. Of course, I can see Adi Aga here right in front of me in the center. So now coming to the tracing board. Before we talk about the Masonic tracing board, what is a tracing board? A tracing board is a design, a plan, which the master craftsman or a designer plans to give a rundown of the work which has to be carried out by his workers. We call it also a blueprint. So this is basically what a tracing board is. Now, what is a Masonic tracing board? A Masonic tracing board is a spiritual blueprint, if I may say so, which contains all the tenets which you find in the volume of the sacred law, which I think we should, in all sincerity, follow. If, to quote, we try to lead ourselves to that house not built with hands, but eternal in the heavens. So that is what a Masonic tracing board should be. Now, can you put image number 1, which is just a plain tracing board? This is not the image number 1. Image number 1, yes, this is image number 1. This is a plain tracing board. It's not a Masonic tracing board, it's a plain tracing board. Now, Freemasonry, brethren, as you all know, is about God, our duty to God, our duty to our family, our duty to our society, and most importantly, our duty to ourselves, for which we have to draw a plan for our spiritual upliftment, to draw us closer to the Almighty. Now, as I have mentioned, I have made an attempt to give added dimension to this. That's why I would like, before we go into the tracing board, to go a little into the history of Freemasonry. As you know, since we are discussing the first degree tracing board, a little peep into the history of Freemasonry. We are going from 600 to 900 years back, when churches and cathedrals were built in Europe. And the first degree resembles an apprentice of an operative Mason, where a person was selected and voted on the basis of mental, moral, and physical qualifications, and give a promise to obey his superiors, work diligently, observe laws, rules, and keeps secrets. As most of us know, this apprenticeship of an operative Mason was 7 years, where he had to prove his fitness in the craft, and after that, his name was entered in the register as an entered apprentice. That is how we call our brethren entered apprentice after the first degree. And today's tracing board is on the first degree and entered apprentice. Now, as you know, we are free, accepted, and speculative Masons, not operative Masons, and we interpret everything that is there in Masonry in a moral sense. Symbols play an important role in explaining the principles of Freemasonry. And as we go through the tracing board, you will see that it is just symbols which give a moral meaning and significance to all the various symbols which are there in the tracing board. The usages and customs in Freemasonry have close affinity to ancient Egyptians. Now, this is very important. It has very close affinity to ancient Egyptians. These philosophers, unwilling to expose the mysteries to vulgar eyes, couched the system of learning in polity, learning and polity under signs and hieroglyphical figures to the high priests or magi, who are under oath to conceal them. The system of Pythagoras was also founded on the same principle. Now, Pythagoras, as you know, was an Egyptian mathematician, was very proficient in Egyptian mathematics. He knew the importance of a circle, how to draw a circle, put a stick in the center, tie a string, take it round on the ground, and you form a circle. In the same way, he knew that the earth was a sphere and it rotated round the sun on the axis. But in those days, it was considered a blasphemy to even pronounce that. That is why the earth was considered and believed to be flat and square in those days. And although Pythagoras knew about it, he dare not open his mouth, otherwise he would face persecution and death. So it was at that time believed that it was not the sun that was the center of the universe. It was the earth that was the center, because it was believed that God created earth first and then the heavens, and the earth was therefore the center and not the sun. Galileo also was knowledgeable. He also knew how our earth was, how our solar system was, but he dare not open his mouth. And because of his learning and pronouncements, he was put into house arrest. And although later on he disowned his pronouncements, as late as 1642, he died in house arrest. So now this is the background as to how our Lord's room is square in shape and we have the heavens above them. Now, Moses, who is also a significant figure in Freemasonry, was an Egyptian prince, and he also was knowledgeable. But in those days, the knowledge was restricted to the royalty and the priestly class, and it was shared in a very close circle. It was a guarded secrets. That is how these secrets have later on evolved amongst Masons, amongst operative Masons, and then amongst us free, accepted, and speculative Masons. So this is just a background of how history was as far as all these beliefs were concerned. Now, as you know, the entire philosophy in Freemasonry is based on the existence of God. The first thing that you are asked when you enter our portals, before you go through the ceremonies, do you believe in God? And that is where it all starts. I have not known of any other organization which puts that question to you. So, as we know, Freemasonry, it is not just the most ancient organization, but if I may say so, it is also the most moral society which inculcates the principles of piety and virtue, invoking the name of the great architect of the universe when we kneel and pray. Gentlemen, can you please put the second slide? The second image, the first degree tracing board. The first degree tracing board. Image number 2. That's right. So now you have the first degree tracing board before you. Very, very colorful, very attractive. And in fact, it is the most elaborate tracing board from all the 3 degrees. And that is what I have decided today is that I will just go through the first degree tracing board, and probably in future, we will have the second degree and the third degree put together in one session. So today's session will be restricted to the first degree tracing board. Now, before we start going through the various things which you see on the tracing board, let us also go back into the history of the tracing board, which to me, I found it very interesting. In those days, in the very olden days, the Masonic meetings used to be held in makeshift rooms above taverns and pubs. Above taverns and pubs, there were makeshift rooms, and there they would have these Masonic meetings. And amongst the first tavern was the Goose and the Gridiron Tavern, after which the restaurant in our Masonic Hall in Bombay is named Goose and Gridiron Restaurant in our Masonic Temple in Bombay. So, Goose and Gridiron was one of the earliest taverns and pubs above which the Masonic meetings used to be held. Now, what used to happen was the tiler, before the meeting would start, would draw with chalk or charcoal on the floor of that room the Masonic tracing board, and that was the lodge. Now, sometimes there were templates also prepared to help the tiler to draw the tracing board on the floor. And some of these templates, which are 300, 400 years old, are still found in Masonic museums. But what used to happen was that after the meeting was over, the floor had to be mopped because it was drawn with chalk and charcoal on the floor. So the floor had to be mopped. It was normally done by a junior mason or an entered apprentice. And what used to happen was, with this type of construction and structures that were there in those days, the water would seep from the floor into the tavern and the pubs. And those who were drinking in the tavern and the pubs would start complaining that what is this nuisance which is going on every time when a Masonic meeting is being held. So, and furthermore, what also used to happen was that these designs were etched on the floor. So what used to happen was, even after mopping, the design would not completely get wiped off, and it would be visible to some extent, and it would be available to be viewed by strangers. So what they then decided was that they will have a cloth on which the design would be printed, and that cloth would be stretched on the ground, and after the meeting was over, the cloth would be folded and taken back. So that system started, that there was the tracing board was on the cloth and it was painted on the cloth. But then what happened was, over a period of time, with regular folding and then people going around, the cloth also used to get spoiled and needed regular replacement. And furthermore, another aspect, that is that the squaring of lodge started in those days, because what used to happen, when they would walk on the floor, in order not to stamp on the cloth, they would square the lodge so as not to step on the cloth. And that is how the practice of squaring the lodge also started when we moved in the temple. So then, as I said, this cloth was also discarded, and what they thought they would do is, they would not put the cloth on the floor, but they would put the cloth on a trestle. which could be hung. So then an improvement was that the cloth, instead of being stretched on the floor, would be hung on a trestle. So then that started the practice of cloth trestle, as it was called in those days. But then again, the cloth trestle also had to be rolled and folded and needed replacement. So they thought that now let's have a permanent solution. Let us do away with the cloth also. And then they introduced what is called a board. Instead of a cloth, a board was made. And the tracing board was painted on the board. So that is then it was known as a trestle board, which we today call a tracing board. So this is the brief history of the tracing board. Now, today in some lodges, the tracing board is imaged either on the wall or on the screen through a projector in many lodges. And with artificial intelligence, which is making rapid strides today, we don't know what is in store for us as far as the new form of tracing board is concerned. So this gives a brief overview of the tracing board. Now, brethren, one important question before I go further is that it is invariably asked, what is the correct position of a tracing board? Because if you must have observed when you visit various lodges that the tracing boards are placed at different places in different lodge meetings. There is no particular place for a tracing board. So I would say that there is no specific place for the tracing board. It is not sacrosanct that you have to place it here or there or wherever. But the tracing board should be placed at a strategic point where when a person who enters the lodge sees the tracing board and knows in which degree the lodge is working. So it should be the position of the tracing board should be at a strategic spot. That is how I would put it. Now, having given you an overview of the tracing board, now we come to the specifics of the tracing board. Now, as you know, the lodge room is square and flat because it was considered that the lodge, that the earth is square and flat, as I explained to you earlier. And the sky is the solid dome. It was even considered that the sky was a solid dome in those days. Now, the west gate is the gate through which you enter, and that is, it signifies your birth into Freemasonry, your entry into Freemasonry, because everything that we do moves from west to east. As you progress in Freemasonry, you move from west to east. You go towards the altar. You go towards the east, which is the source of light. And that is how, as you move from west to east, it's not just that the light, when you entered, you are blindfolded, then you are partially exposed to light, and then you are fully exposed to light. But it is also the knowledge that is given to you in small doses that you can absorb. The lodge room is oblong in shape, east-west in length, and north-south in breadth, and the vastness of the Lodge Room depicts the universality of science and Freemasons' charity, which you are all acquainted with, which you have tested when you first enter Freemasonry. You are to know your sentiments as far as this particular aspect is concerned. Another beautiful aspect of the temple is the canopy stretching to the heavens and the earth as the footstool of the Lord, and the stars, sun, and moon, its messengers. Now we come to a very important aspect of the tracing board, and that is that the tracing board is supposed to be on holy ground. That is why we call our lodge room temple. Why do we call it the temple? Because it is supposed to be on holy ground. And what is the reason that it is holy ground? There are three reasons. Can you display slide number 3, please? Image 3, please. Yeah. Now you see here, Abraham offering his son Isaac as the sacrifice to God. You are all acquainted with the history. This is well known in history that Abraham offered his son Isaac as a sacrifice to God, and the Almighty was pleased, and out of compassion, he substituted the sacrifice which Moses had put to a sheep or lamb. That is how the history goes. So that is one aspect of why the lodge room is considered to be holy ground. The second is, can you put the next slide, please? The second is David. This is King David offering penitential prayer to God to stay the pestilence. King David praying to God to stay the pestilence. Now we'll again have a little peep into history. See, what happened was David wanted to get his citizens and people numbered. So he conducted a census. But this did not have the approval of God, and this drew the wrath of God. And he told David that you shall be punished for what you have done, and I will give you a choice of 3 punishments. The first punishment was 3 years of famine. The second punishment, or either 3 years of famine or 3 months of flight from the enemies at his heel. Or the third punishment, 3 days of pestilence. King David chose the last punishment of 3 days of pestilence. Now, as you know, pestilence is an epidemic, a spread of disease which cannot be controlled. And when this pestilence was unleashed by the angel, there was death all around. So David again prayed to God to stop the pestilence. And he asked God for forgiveness for his transgressions and atonement for his sins. And God told him that I shall do so only if you build an altar at the same place where Abraham had offered his sacrifice. So David went about to build an altar at the same place where Abraham had offered the sacrifice. But this place was under the kingdom of King Arona at that time. And so he approached that king and asked him that this was the dictate from God. And King Arona offered him that piece of land for free. But King David did not want to accept it for free, because it was on the diktat of God that he had to build that altar. And so later, when he had taken that ground, an altar was not just an altar was built, but a temple was built on that same spot where God had instructed that altar to be built. And that is the same spot where King Solomon built the temple, which we all are very familiar with. Can you put the next slide, please? Number 6. Number 6, not number 5. Sorry, number 6. Yeah. Now this is the Solomon's temple, as you can all see, with all its grandeur. And I will again give you a brief history of how this temple got to be constructed a little later. Now, as I said, the first reason why it is considered holy ground was that Abraham offered his son as the sacrifice. Then that King David was made to build the altar at the same spot. And number 3, it was the same spot where the Solomon's temple was built. Now, as you see, the grandeur of this temple. As I said, I'll explain the details of this temple a little later. But most temples and places of divine worship, as you know, whether in India or abroad, are normally east-west, because east is supposed to be a very auspicious site, because the sun rises in the east. It is added that it is a very important role that it plays in Freemasonry. And it's not just that the sun rises in the east, even the seat of learning was in the east, and the learning spread from east to west, as we all know. So that is the second reason why it is east-west. And the third reason is that when Moses was moving in the wilderness with the captives, Israelites captives, from Babylon to Jerusalem, and he built this tent and tabernacle, it was under God's command that he built it east and west. And that is how this temple which you see here, the Solomon's temple, was also built east-west in Jerusalem. Please come to slide number 5, the earlier one. Yeah. Now we come to the 3 pillars. Now please note that these 3 pillars which you see on the tracing board are not the same pillars which are there in the Solomon's temple. No, many a times people confuse. The Solomon's temple has only two pillars, as you saw in the slide which I showed you earlier, which we will again see later. The Solomon's temple has only two pillars at the porch, one on the left and one on the right, of which you are very conversant with. I will not give the names of these pillars because this presentation is in public domain, but you are well aware of. But the three pillars in the tracing board, as you see, stands for wisdom, strength, and beauty. Now, wisdom to direct us in our undertakings, strength to support us in our difficulties, and beauty to adorn us. Beauty, please note the word, beauty to adorn us inwardly, not outwardly. How we dress up is not what beauty is. Inwardly, how beautiful we are inwardly. So that is the significance of all these three pillars. Now, these three pillars also stand for three prominent figures in Freemasonry. The first pillar stands for Solomon, King of Israel. The second pillar stands for Hiram, King of Tyre. And the third pillar stands for Hiram Abif, the master craftsman, which we are all familiar with in Freemasonry. So these are basically the three pillars. Now, as far as the wisdom part of the first pillar is concerned, it was in conceiving the idea and setting up the temple, the strength, conceiving the idea and setting up the temple of King Solomon. Then the support which Hiram, King of Tyre, gave through men and material. And the third, the beauty with which it was crafted by the master craftsman, Hiram Abif. Now, as I said, we will go back and again into a bit of history about King Solomon's temple. Could you please put image 6? Image 6, please. Image 6. Solomon's temple, please. Yes. So now what happened was, as you know, David was the father of Solomon. And David was given the diktat by God to construct an altar, and which he did. But he never got to building the temple. Although he had planned and designed the temple, he did not go to building the temple. Because as the story goes, David was basically an aggressor. He was an aggressor and battle happy. And he was all the time occupied in that. So he didn't have the time to construct the temple. So the constructing of the temple fell on King Solomon, which he did 4 years after he took charge. Now, although King Solomon was a wise man and always did everything with a lot of grandeur as far as sacrifices are concerned, as far as oblations are concerned, as far as uh, uh, merrymaking and enjoyment was concerned. But he didn't have the resources in his kingdom to build a temple. But Solomon knew that his father, King David, was a good friend of King Hiram of Tyre, who was a Phoenician. Now, Phoenician people were very skillful people and people with a lot of resources. So, King Solomon approached King Hiram and requested him to supply men and material for the construction of the temple. So Hiram agreed and he gave him cedar, Lebanese cedar from his kingdom, which was floated from Tyre of his kingdom to Joppa. People who are Royal Ark Freemasons are familiar with Joppa and Tyre. So this Lebanese cedar was floated from Tyre to Joppa and then overland to Mount Moriah. Mount Moriah, as you know, is the holy ground, the sacred place where the altar was there and where the temple was built. So it was shifted there. Now Joppa later got to be known as Jaffa, which we today know as Tel Aviv. So that is the brief history of this place. So now what happened? King Hiram gave him men and material, and in return, Solomon would give corn, oil, and wine to his people. As you know, wages in those days are paid in corn, oil, and wine, and that is why even in our rededication ceremonies, we use corn, oil, and wine. Consecration or rededication ceremonies, to be precise. Now, incidentally, King Hiram also sent a master craftsman to oversee the building of the temple. And this master craftsman was none other than Hiram Abif, whom we all know in Freemasonry as the son of a widow, which you are aware as you go for those who have gone through the third degree. Can you once again portray the image of image number 5? Wonderful. Now we again come back to the 3 pillars. Now, there are no noble orders in architecture. And that is why these 3 pillars were known as the Ionic, the Doric, and the Corinthian. The Ionic pillar stands for the Right Worshipful Master. The Doric pillar stands for the Senior Warden. And the Corinthian pillar stands for the Junior Warden. So since these three pillars stand for the three principal office bearers in a lodge. At the base of the pillar in the tracing board, you will see the signs of square, level, and plumb roll, which will be there, which was there in the tracing board of the first degree, which was presented to you earlier. So it is there at the base of all these three pillars. Now the ionic pillar is broad at the base and becomes slender as it goes up. And it has got ram horn volutes on the top. The Doric pillar is a straight pillar, not a decorative pillar, but it is the most ancient pillar. It's a straight pillar, not decorative at all. And it is the Doric pillar, which is the center pillar. And the third pillar, which is the Corinthian pillar, is also similar to the Ionic pillar, but it is more decorative than the Ionic pillar also, because it has acacia twigs at the top. Acacia significant of being a robust plant and standing for immunity. And in those days, it was normally engraved or kept on the graves also, as to signify immunity of the soul. So that is the significance of the acacia plant, which is decorated on top of the Corinthian pillar. Now, another aspect of the three pillars is that for those of you who have visited Rome and who have visited the Colosseum in Rome, you will find that the Doric, which is the center pillar of the senior warden, at the first level of the Colosseum, because it is the sturdiest of the pillars. And in the middle and top level, you will find the Ionic pillar and the Corinthian pillar in the Colosseum. So that gives you a complete idea of all the pillars. As I have said, I have made an attempt to try and share with you some facts and history about things which are not available in the ritual. And this is what is there as far as the pillars are concerned. Now we come to another interesting part of the tracing board, and that is the Jacob's ladder. Can you give us image number 7, please? Image number 7. Yes, wonderful. Now this is the Jacob's ladder. This is one of my very favorite symbols. Now the Jacob's ladder, as you see, is resting on the volume of the sacred law, and it leads to heaven. It rests on the volume of the sacred law and it goes right up to heaven, as you see the sparkle and the blinding light on the top. So the Jacob ladder, as you see, consists of several staves and rungs, representing. Now these rungs and staves are supposed to represent good virtues, qualities, and attributes as a human being. As human beings, we are supposed to have good attributes, which is there in all the religions, which is there in all the volume of the sacred laws. Good attributes which a person should possess. But now, what is emphasized as far as the attributes are concerned is 3 attributes are given special significance in Freemasonry. So the 3 attributes are faith in the Almighty as the first step, represented by a cross, as you see. Faith in the Almighty as the first step, representing the cross. Now this cross is there because it is with reference to the Bible, which is there as the volume of the sacred law. But as you know, in our lodge, we have all the volumes of sacred law open to us, to whichever faith we belong to. So this cross can be replicated with any symbol of your faith. Like I am a Zoroastrian, so it could be fire as far as I am concerned. For a Hindu, it could be Om, and for the other religious beliefs, it could be any symbol of your faith. It is basically the symbol of your faith. That is the first step. So the first and very important attribute that one should have is your faith in the Almighty. Now, your faith in the Almighty leads you to the second step. And the second step is hope. And the hope is represented by an anchor. So, if you have faith in the Almighty, it leads you to hope to partake the blessed promise for salvation. Because that is the ultimate aim of all of us who are there on earth. Salvation. And the anchor is a symbol of peace in stormy weather, and in life, it is the rough and tumble of life. So, you come to safety in a stormy weather with the help of an anchor. And with the help of an anchor, it helps you through the rough and tumble of life. And invariably, the anchor is accompanied by an ark as a symbol. Now, we go to the third attribute. And the third attribute is charity, which is depicted by a heart. Now, I don't have to elaborate on this aspect because it is a tried and tested aspect as far as Freemasonry is concerned. But forget Freemasons, as far as even anybody else is concerned. Charity, not in its strict sense of checkbook charity, but charity in the sense of really feeling the pain of the unprivileged and giving succor to them. That, according to me, is charity. Now, before we wind up the Jacob's ladder, people ask how many staves should be there on or rungs should be there on the Jacob's ladder. The three principal ones are 3, as I have told. The principal ones are 3, as I have told you. Some say it is 7, and in some tracing board it goes even more than 100. As I said, it all represents the attributes that a human being should possess in order to lead him to the Almighty. Now we come to the next image, and that is image number 8, please. The starry firmament, which is there on the top in the lodge on the ceiling. This is the, if I may say, is the ethereal mention, veil from mortal eyes in the starry firmaments, depicted by 7 stars, figuratively the minimum number that can form and open a lodge, right? So you cannot open a lodge without at least there being 7 brethren. Okay. And there are several philosophical interpretations to the number 7. I spoke a little while about Pythagoras. Now, 7, according to the philosophy, Pythagoras philosophy, signifies spirituality. Even in our Indian philosophy, we have the 7 chakras in our body, starting from our base chakra, the Muladhara chakra, to the topmost chakra, the Sahasrara chakra. So there are several aspects to the number 7. It is in the Bible, God took 6 days to build the earth, and the 7th day was the day of rest. So everything was completed in 7 days. And then you have the 7 heavens in Islam and Judaism. And then you have our 7 feras when you tie the knot in our Indian culture. So there are various aspects to the number 7. But what is most important, can you go back to the Jacob's ladder? Yeah. Now, I just forgot to draw your attention to what, according to me, is the most important aspect of the Jacob's ladder. Now, if you observe, if you want to climb a ladder or a step, you cannot go on to the next step without leaving the earlier step. Okay? So you have to leave the earlier step to go on the next step. So to me, the ladder or the step signifies to let go in life. We have to let go. We have to let go things in order to make progress in life. We have to leave behind us our negativity and embrace positivity. We have to let go our possession and not be attached to them if we want to make our progress towards the Almighty. So to me, a very important aspect of the ladder is to let go. Now, we come to the next, that is number 9, the mosaic pavement. Yeah. Now I think I have covered a lot of time, because most of the things which I explained to you earlier were not in the ritual. But now the rest of the things are there in the ritual. So I will rush through them. I will not go deeper into them because it is there in the ritual. Now the mosaic pavement stands, according to me, for unity in diversity. It stands for opposite, the black and white, as you see. The checkered flooring is very eye-catching and symbolic of Freemasonry. And it sort of portrays the diversity in creation and in nature, both animate and inanimate. The next one, the blazing star. The blazing star represents the sun with its innumerable benefits like light, warmth, and a purifying element that it is. Okay. And above the blazing star, in most lodges, you have the symbol G. Now, it's interpreted in different ways. Some says G stands for God. Some say it depicts the grand geometrician of the universe. Some say it is a Hebrew character alphabet. So that is what it is. Then we come to the next image, number 11. Number 11, the tessellate border. The tessellate border. The tessellate border is interesting in the sense it represents the planets around the sun. In the center, as you saw, there was this blazing star. Then you had the checkered flooring, and the border is the tessellate border represents the planets around the sun. So this again gives us an idea that although the general belief was that the earth was flat and square, the knowledgeable people knew that it was a sphere and that it rotated around the earth, and that we had seasons, and then the changing weather, etc., on account of the planetary movements. Next, number 12. Now we come to number 12. Number 12 comprises of the furniture of the lodge. Now, the lodge has three furniture. One is the volume of the sacred law. The second is the compass. And the third is the square. So these three are the furniture of the lodge. No, you just keep this only. You just keep this only. Now, the volume of the sacred law. As I said, Freemasonry is not a religion, but it is religious in the sense that it encourages us to supplement and complement our own religion. And it enjoins us to follow the tenets of what is laid in the volume of the sacred law of our own religion, to whichever we belong. And to me, the volume of the sacred law is a manual of life. If I may just take a minute to elaborate a little. See, when you buy any equipment, a washing machine or TV or any electronic equipment, your car, whatever, it comes with a manual, how to operate it. Similarly, the volume of the sacred law is a manual how to operate ourselves in life. If we go by the tenets of what is there in the volume of the sacred law, we shall in all surety reach the ethereal heaven. So to me, the volume of the sacred law is a manual of how to operate life. So remember always, whenever you see any manual to operate any electronic equipment, remember the manual of your life, the volume of the sacred law, how to operate your life. Now we come to the next, the square and the compasses. Now, let me emphasize, it is square and compasses. We make the mistake of saying square and compass. It is not at square and compass. It is square and compasses. Now, again, I will not elaborate on the square because it is there in your ritual, the explanation of the working tools. It's very elaborate. The operative aspect, the moral aspect, it is therefore, it is given in wonderful language. It stands for regulating your actions in life. The square and the compass to keep yourself within bounds. Okay? To keep yourself within bounds, the compass of propriety. You should guide your thoughts within the compass of propriety. Next image. Now we come to jewels of the lodge. The jewels of the lodge are, again, now see, the square is so important that it is there in the furniture of the lodge also and in the jewel of the lodge also. So the square is there, then we have the level, and then we have the plumb rule. Again, I will not go into the details of it because it is there in the ritual, in the working tools, which explains everything. But I should tell you why these are known as jewels and why these are known as movable jewels. The square, the level, and the plumb rule are called movable jewels. They are movable jewels because as you pass various offices in Freemasonry, they are given as jewels in your collar. So the square is for the master, the level is for the senior warden, and the plumb rule is for the junior warden. Now, let me tell you that as far as our Scottish Freemasonry is concerned, it is not just the square which is there as the jewel of the Right Worshipful Master. It is a square with compasses, arc of a circle, and star representing the sun, typified by the all-seeing eye. Square, as I said, stands for regulating your action. Level, as we all know, stands for equality. And the plumb rule stands for uprightness. Now we come to the immovable. These are the three movable jewels. Now we come to the three immovable jewels. Let's go to the next one. So the three immovable jewels are the tracing board, about which I have explained to you a lot. So I am not displaying the image of the tracing board. So one is the tracing board. The second immovable jewel is the rough ashlar, and the third immovable jewel is the perfect ashlar. Now you may ask, why is it called immovable? Why are those called movable and these immovable? Those are movable because they are passed on from one office bearer to the other office bearer as they progress in Freemasonry. But these are immovable jewels because they are lying there in the lodge room for you to see and draw lessons from. So the rough asla represents your formative years from infant, like an infant in the primitive state, like a rough and unpolished asla, to becoming a perfect asla. So it's rough asla is a rough stone which you have to chip and groom and make it perfect. Can you go to the next image, please? This is the perfect asla, which is chipped, made perfect, the roughness removed and polished. So we have to pursue in life to become perfect human beings, to be accepted as we progress in life. And the important aspect is, as we become perfect, we have to wane ourselves from the material aspects to the spiritual aspects. Thank you. Next. Now the center. Now the center also plays a very important role. As you see, there is a center, there is a dot in the center, then there is a circle, and there are two lines on either side. Now I will take a little time and explain all of the tree. The center is a point within the circle, as we say, from which no master mason can err. The point within the circle has various interpretations over the years, but one could consider it as a symbol of the Supreme Being. Point within the circle where your aim is to expand in knowledge and expand your heart to reach the circumference of the circle. It is also considered a source of light, the sun, the center of the universe, which stands for knowledge as opposed to darkness, which is ignorance. The circle, as you see, is an emblem of eternity. And it was believed in the olden days that anything within the circle is protected from evil. And that is why that is why today we wear finger rings, bracelets, anklets, necklaces. Today we wear them as ornaments, but in olden days, they were worn to ward off evil and to protect us from evil. Now, another aspect of the circle is a serpent eating its own tail. Have you seen that? I'm sorry, I'm not having that symbol here. But have you seen the symbol of a serpent eating its own tail? So the serpent eating its own tail is an emblem of eternity and immortality. And the serpent being the symbol of wisdom, power, and creative energy. And you must have also observed the serpent on the fastener of your Masonic apron. If you have not observed, next time when you wear your Masonic apron, look at the fastener. There is a serpent on the fastener of your Masonic apron. Now, the center is bounded by two parallel lines in the north and the south, representing Moses and King Solomon, two prominent figures in Freemasonry. And going right up to the heavens from the volume of the sacred law. Next, Lewis. Now we come to Lewis. Now you may ask, what is Lewis? Lewis is a device which enables a mason, an operative mason, to lift heavy loads with great ease. So it's a device to lift heavy load with great ease. And in Freemasonry, a Lewis is supposed to be the son of a mason. The son of a mason is supposed to be is called Lewis because he is supposed to ease the burden of his parents and make life easy for them in their old days. That is why a Freemason son is given the privilege in Freemasonry to join Freemasonry earlier compared to others. See, as you know, the threshold for Freemasonry is 21 years, and for Lewis, it is 18 years. So this privilege is given to Lewis to enter Freemasonry earlier than the others. But incidentally, just last week, I received a correspondence from Lodge, from Grand Lodge, and they have now done away with this privilege which Lewis was getting. So now, for anybody and everybody, the entry age into Freemasonry is reduced from 21 to 18, which was earlier the age for a Lewis. And Grand Lodge has given another benefit, and that is from 18 years to 23 years, you will pay only 50% of your subscription, both for entrance and for annual. From 18 to 23 years, you pay only half of your subscription fee because they want to encourage young Masons young persons to get into Freemasonry. Now, I think we've come to the end of our tracing board. I have practically covered and everything. There is just one last thing which is remaining, and that is the pendant. The pendant is number 19. The pendant is number 19. Now, as I have explained earlier, Freemasonry is a moral society, and we go into the different aspects of morality and encourage various attributes and virtues. So the pendant stands for the 3 cardinal virtues. I'm sorry, the 4 cardinal, not the 3, the 4 cardinal virtues. And the 4 cardinal virtues are prudence, temperance, fortitude, and justice. Prudence, as you know, we are supposed to be cautious, careful, avoid risk, and act with wisdom. Temperance, we should do things with moderation, have self-restraint, and self-control, moderation in anything and everything that we do. Food, drink, and general indulgence. Fortitude is courage in pain or adversity. Symbol of fortitude is, if I may share with you, is a woman with a sword, shield, and a column. That is the symbol in history, from the Philistine times, it is a symbol of woman with sword, shield, and column. And it was referred to as the destruction of Philistines by Samson. Now, Plato, the great philosopher, has also identified these same four cardinals, which later become part of Christian tradition. As I said, prudence, temperance, fortitude, and justice. There are these very beautiful four lines in our charge to a Mason. Let prudence direct you, temperance chasten you, fortitude support you, and justice be the guide to all your actions. Now, before I wind, brethren, the last symbol, symbol 20, the all-seeing eye, please. All-seeing eye. This symbol is not on the tracing board. But at the same time, you find in practically any and every lodge. And it is my favorite symbol for the simple reason that God is watching over us for whatever we do, either in public or in private. Many a times we think we are privy to what we do when we are not doing things in public. But the all-seeing eye is always watching us. And more so, as far as our thoughts are concerned. As our thoughts are concerned, we think we can think anything and everything, because who knows what we are thinking? But no, the all-seeing eye is always knows what is there in our mind and what we think also. So be watchful of your thoughts also, brethren. And finally, before I conclude, I remember the words of my father, who always used to keep on repeating these lines, which are there in the charge, because he was also a Mason. He was the district grand treasurer. And he always used to repeat these lines to me from the charge. Dedicate yourself to such a pursuit, to become respected in life, useful to mankind, and an ornament to society, of which you have today become a member. Thank you, brethren. You can now remove all the images, please. Thank you, brethren. I hope I have done justice to the subject.
All right, Worshipful District Grandmaster.
Yes.
Right, Worshipful District Grandmaster.
Yeah.
Not only was the speech a little enchanting, it has given us a good insight into the esoteric, the philosophical, the ethical, and the moral principles of the order to which we belong. In fact, when you were speaking and explaining the tracing board, it left me wondering if a small thing like a tracing board, which we don't even give a second glance at, has so much of depth of meaning and so much of esoteric value, will Freemasonry as a whole should be so voluminous in its literature, in its philosophy, that I don't think anybody can ever say that one is perfect in this aspect. Nobody in Masonry can say that I am an expert at the philosophical principles. Thank you for the speech that you have given, and let us not forget today that Brother Naresh Kumar Ragi from Hyderabad has hosted this webinar, and the display of the images also he has taken care of. Thank you, Brother Naresh, from all of us present over here. And
it's my pleasure.
Right Worshipful District Grandmaster. And adverting back to the talk that we had today, any questions to be asked of our participants, and the District Grandmaster would be too happy to answer them.
Yeah, I would be too happy to answer. But the thing is, I have, as it is spoken for such a long time, and people have heard me a lot. So I think we would also like to know from you, because Nausir, you yourself are a knowledgeable person. And Brother Ipur, as I also said, is a very knowledgeable person. And there may be some other brethren who are also knowledgeable. So if you feel comfortable in answering the queries that are put, please do so. Don't just wait for me to answer them. Yeah.
Yes, Brother Deshpande, you can speak.
Yes, pardon?
Would you like to ask any question?
Oh, not question, but I am happy to give the feedback. Almost I have completed 15 years in masonry, but for the first time, I came to know much about the tracing board. Normally, at the time of just the ritual, just we listen to the explanation of the tracing board for 10-15 minutes. But today, our district grandmaster, Right Worshipful Kersi Limathwalla, so he has explained each and everything in a so minute level. So in our language, I can say he's a PhD in all masonry information. We enjoyed this session, and definitely we will share this information to our all brethren, to our lodge. Thank you very much.
Brother Mohan, I share my sentiments with you. See, I have been in Freemasonry for 47 years. But I myself have learned a lot when I decided to make this presentation. So learning is it is a learning process. You know, there is no end to learning. It is only when you decide to do something that you. So this session, this presentation, has been a learning experience for me also, because I wanted to make a presentation, as I said, which is not in the ritual. So I had to go outside of the ritual to give, because as I said, if I repeat what is there in the ritual, it won't make sense. So it has been a learning experience for me also.
Thank you. We'll be learners till our last breath. Thank you.
Brother, we also have present amongst us Brother Bharat Ipur, whom I can readily say that he's the most knowledgeable Mason in India I've come across so far. Brother Ipur, would you like to throw some light on any of the aspects that has been spoken about?
Brother Nausir, thank you very much. Brother Kersi, first of all, please permit me to congratulate you on a spellbinding lecture.
Thank you.
It was very.
And
my one request for both of you is if you could please give us a link for the recording of this, because I think this should be transmitted to each and every lodge and chapter. And also there are several brethren who expressed their inability to attend this meeting because of other scheduling conflicts. But if they could have access to the recording, they would be very, very grateful to both of you. That is one request. So the other thing I just wanted to share with you, yesterday being Universal Brotherhood Day, which was adopted in 2004, the idea of 24th of June being important to Masonry is, apart from the fact that the first 4 lodges met in 1717 in London to create the first Premier Grand Lodge. This date has significance primarily because it's a summer solstice, and which has had astronomical and other significances in
Right.
civilization for a long time.
Right.
It has also been adopted as St. John the Baptist Day. And the two pillars which you, the two parallel lines surrounding that circle with a point within it, which you referred to as Moses and Solomon, as is true. There are some lodges and some constitutions which refer to those two parallel lines as the two patron saints of Freemasonry. The first being St. John the Baptist, who is celebrated on summer solstice. The other one is St. John the Evangelist, who is celebrated on the winter solstice, which comes in December. So I thought I can just share that little bit.
Of course, of course.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Brother Iput, I think Brother Naresh has also put this on the YouTube.
Okay, wonderful.
But we will definitely share the recording with you. But I believe he has also put. He's also. Am I right, Brother Naresh? It is there on the YouTube.
Yes, Master. We made it YouTube live. I share the YouTube link.
Yeah.
Okay, if you could please send a circular so that it's on record, we know where that YouTube will be available.
Yeah.
Brother Rinesh,
Sure.
Brother Rinesh Hegde is also very much involved in study of Freemasonry, and I've been associated with him in quite a number of projects. Brother Rinesh, would you like to contribute something? Brother Rinesh. I think he's not on audio. Any? No. Yes, Adi.
First of all, Kersi, thank you so much for inviting us and for the presentation. It was lovely. For people like us from the Irish Constitution who don't have any tracing board, it's particularly interesting. But what I would like to ask is, was this the tracing board for the first degree, second degree, or do you have
First degree. First degree.
Only for the first degree.
Only first. This is the first degree, and the second degree and third degree tracing boards are also there, but they are not as elaborate as the first degree. So probably what I plan to do is maybe the second and third degree we will combine it together. I wanted to take more time on the first degree because I gave a background of the history of the tracing board also. Besides the first degree, just the background of the tracing board. So that took a bit of time. So that's what we propose to do.
We'll look forward to it.
Thank you.
Brother Adi Aga is the provincial Grand Master of the Provincial Grand Lodge of Ireland in India. And I wouldn't say fortunately or unfortunately, but they don't have the tracing board in the Irish Constitution. So I think it would have made him more interested in this.
Yeah, quite right.
Any other contribution? Any other questions? Any suggestion for the future programs? You have any other topics that you would like us to cover? I think there are no further questions, Brother Rt Wor DGM. Can we then wind up for the day?
The no questions has two meanings. One is that the brethren are bored to hell after this presentation. and the other is I have dwelled into the minutest aspect of it, so that I have not left any question to be asked.
I think the second is the correct one.
Yeah. Okay, brother. In case you have any query on any second thought, you can always get back to us at the district office. We will be only too glad to clarify the position. And before we wind up, thanks to all of you for having spared your Sunday morning listening to this talk. And once again to Brother Naresh Ragi for having hosted the meeting. Thank you very much.